I call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Our first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Unfortunately, since we're in our awesome new space, we have not got the flag yet. So we're going to move on past that into roll call. We will have that corrected for next week, though.
Akers, Ackers, Albers, Archer, Bergson, Bogner, Bowler, Bickerud, Demaranville, Dahl, Elliott, Flores, Fuller, Garcia, Garrity, Grandy, Hendrickson, Hyen, Ho, Ha, Jackson, Jewell, Kallenberger, Kelly, Kidd, Klein, Lonker, Maples, Markle, Martin, McDermott, McIntyre, Mertens, Meyer, Nichols, Niedery, Nordstrom, Ogren, Orth, Oxler, Penny, Papoon, Pitts, Renz, Rostempour, Swanson, Tidrow, Thomas, Tuttle, Valdez, Williams, Works, Zwick. All right, there are 49 senators present for roll call.
Awesome, thank you. Our first speaker in first open period is Heather Reed.
Good evening. I think that this is a rather auspicious occasion as we move SGA Senate from its old home of the Big 12 room into the brand new Wildcat Chambers. And I thought we should do something to acknowledge that. And so I took some time to write an ode to Wildcat Chambers. Today, the Wildcat Chambers is christened and we commence, acknowledging the Student Governing Association tradition of excellence. May this new space be ever so loved and revered as the Big 12 room was through many, 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 many years. We convene in a space that is new, modern, and splendid, with SGA leaders in business attire, as intended. Work in the chamber will serve as an example of good governance, with noble legislation containing high ideals and good substance. Senators eager to improve the student experience and to learn how best to take issues, find good solutions, and adjourn. You'll have fun on the way and make friends in the process. If you're done before midnight, it will be a success. Special thanks to past leaders named Reagan and Hertig. They supported this vision and prevailed and were big. It's hard to find something that rhymes with Hertig. Big. In securing the funding and determined they stood to deliver an ideal of a chambers that would serve and be good. As the signature space for shared governance to live and excel, faculty, student, and support staff senates will thrive and do well. The K-State ideal of governing with compassion and brilliance will contribute to all and enhance our 2025 excellence. I thought you'd like that. The improvements in accessibility, transparency, and streaming to all will enhance the good work and will certainly enthrall. Best wishes to members of SGA as you serve and hone your craft. Work hard, reach for excellence, and as always, go Cats.
Our second speaker is University President Richard B. Myers.
You don't know how comfortable they are. This is the most dressed up I've seen any student on campus anytime. Let me just say that. And I'm going to the volleyball game, so I had to dress down. I'm not going to wear a suit to Ahern when it's going to be 90 degrees in there. So thank you for the opportunity. Jack thought it might be interesting if I just said something about how I wind up as your president. And some of you know the story because we've talked about it, and some probably don't. But I was happy to take the interim position a year ago, April, but I was bound and determined to get the heck out of here by December because my family, kids, 6 grandkids, they're all back on the East Coast, and that's where I want to go back to. And so I told the search chair, Dennis Mullen, one of the regents, Board of Regents, said, you know, if you don't have somebody by December, you're going to see 2 red taillights heading out of town going east. And then something happens, like happens a lot in Manhattan, to prospective students, people like Coach Snyder and so forth. I really enjoyed what we were doing, and I liked the people we were doing it with. And a lot of things aren't perfect, right? But the people make the difference. And the challenges we had, I thought these are worth spending some time on trying to help fix them. So one thing led to another, and the last possible day you could submit your application, I slipped under the door of Dennis Mullen's office downtown and said, okay, I'd like to apply. And then was selected, fortunately, and since November been the permanent president, which I feel very privileged to serve in that position. So that's kind of the story. It was never intended. I had other things to do. But this seemed too important. And I think besides the people, it's this whole notion of higher education and where it fits in our society and how important it is that we as a country continue to educate people to become really productive and great citizens. And Kansas State does that so well, and that's part of the motivation, and I never lose sight of that. A couple of things that I'll just update you on. I have no overheads. 2025, we're in the middle of an update, right? It's been about 5 years, so we're doing an update. Maybe you've been involved. There's lots of room for comment. We went out for comments, got comments back. We're going to tweak some changes. We'll go back for another round of comments on where do you think we are. There will not be major U-turns, 90-degree rights, or anything in that. This is going to be tweaking the plan. All plans need to be refreshed regularly. So that's what we're doing. We'll engage the whole family and the community, matter of fact. There's many opportunities for input and discussion. Our goal is going to remain the same. We want to become a top 50 public research university. And, one thing about aspirations, I think a lot of alumni, maybe even students, when Kurt Schultz and folks developed as a community, that as our goal. I think there are a lot of people who thought K-State, well, we're already a top 50. Well, not true. Depending on how you measure it. And there are no standard measurements for who's top of anything. But when you look at the things that kind of matter, the things that we've tried to measure in 2025, we were top 100, but we weren't top 50. And if we want to provide a quality experience for students, attract quality faculty, and on it goes, we've got to improve. So some of you saw we went to every department, every college. With our first 5 years of 2025, we've made astounding progress despite reduction in state funding. So it shows what having a plan and a vision can do even in times of reduced resources, maybe particularly in times of reduced resources. Things I'll focus on, I have focused on people and faculty, students, staff. One of the things we did here at the first of this fiscal year was a 2.5% pay raise to faculty and staff across the board. That was not what the state did in their legislation. They kind of goofed it up, and it would have resulted in some people getting a 5% raise and the people who've been here the longest getting nothing. So if you're new, you got a 5% raise. You've been here for a long while, you got 0. Somebody quipped that was the loyalty tax. We thought that's just not fair. So we had planned to provide a raise anyway, and so we provided 2.5 to all faculty and staff. Not much, helps offset some of the medical expenses, help offset some of the other expenses going up, but not a big raise. But we felt like we had to do it, and I think it was reasonably well received, even though we wish we could have done more. We are going to stay laser focused on promoting diversity and inclusion. You know, we've reorganized. We've got a couple searches going. We've got to figure out how we're going to move forward on Multicultural Center. I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. We've got to focus on the cost of education, but let me tell you that you've asked, somebody said, what can we do to help? One of the ways you can help is we talk cost all the time. And Jack you weren't there, but at our last Board of Regents meeting, not the one you attended, not the last one you were, I don't think you were in the room. Okay, you remember Bardo talking about the Nissan Versa? So what's the cheapest car you can buy? New, probably. Nissan Versa, $12,000, great car, right? Gets you anywhere you want to go. It's not fair to ask this audience, but if you were to ask a bunch of folks that are already out of college how many have a Nissan Versa, it wouldn't be very many. And why is that? Why do some drive Chevrolets and some drive Buicks and some drive Cadillacs and some want Mercedes? Well, it's value as they see it in their eyes. So the value is what we ought to be talking about, not the cost. We are a great value across the board. Cost is important. We have enrollment issues. Some of that is due to cost. We know that, or we think that. But we have to start talking in terms of value, because this education here is, in the hierarchy of places you can go to school, is about as good as you can do in the state of Kansas. KU, K-State, in the hierarchy, talking frankly, are probably your top 2. Other places aren't going to provide the same value to you as a student. It may be adequate value, but it's not going to be the same value. And we need to start talking about that without knocking anybody else. But I think young people need to understand that there is value in having a diploma on the wall that says Kansas State University. We have so many top-ranked or top 10 ranked programs. We've got great faculty. It's a research university, which there are only 2 in the state. I guess Wichita State does some, but compared, it's KU and K-State. And that, if it works right, bleeds over into classrooms and professors' presentations. That's what this is about, and why it's maybe cost a few dollars more, but the value is worth a lot more. So I would ask the Student Senate and Government Association to think about how we discuss why you want to come to K-State. And there are a lot of reasons you want to come, but one is the value. We'll still a bargain. Look around any state, we're still a bargain. But one of the things we have to do to help with cost is continue to work the philanthropy side, and we're doing that. And that's where I've been for the last 3 days. I've been in Ashland, Kansas. Who knows where Ashland is? Oh, good. And well, then you all know where Dodge City is, and you all know where Garden City is, and you all know where Scott City is. Stafford, how many people know where Stafford? Where are you from? Okay, but yeah, you're not very far. Got a good chicken fried steak in Stafford, meeting with some alums, and then yesterday, Wichita, and all day working with Greg Willems at the foundation, trying to work relationships with our friends and corporations and donors, because the philanthropy piece scholarships are what is going to help bring our cost of attending Kansas State down, and so we're pushing on that, obviously, pretty hard. So I think your voice is really important. I think when we get into this next legislative session, we talked about it last time, I think the voices that probably have the most impact in Topeka when the legislature is in session, when we're talking about higher education, is your voice. And I'll leave it up to you how you want to mobilize that, if you want to mobilize it. But listening to the president of the university is one thing, but I think faculty and staff can have a real impact in Topeka. So that's another way you can help. If you can think of ways to do that, I would issue that charge. The Multicultural Student Center, as you know, the planning committee reported out late spring. We have that report. Some of the people that were on that study are part of the searches that we have going on right now. We're not going to move forward with any ideas on the Multicultural Student Center until we have our chief diversity and inclusion person on board, because we need a champion on campus, and I would expect that person, he or she, to be that champion. And so I don't want to start down a path, then bring somebody on. I want them to feel that that buy-in early. It'll be part of how I interview them. It's good. They have to buy in, because they're going to have to be, frankly, a great salesperson as we go out and try to raise money to build a multicultural center, whatever form that takes. So we're just going to have to wait till that person's on board. Hopefully that search is underway. Hopefully that'll be before the end of the year. We can have somebody on board to do that. So that's, you heard it here first, or maybe not here first, but that's what we're going to try to do. I mentioned that search. We've got the Associate VP in Student Life for Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs. We've got a search being put together for a new Dean of Veterinary Medicine. She left on her own volition. She wanted to go back to research in Washington, D.C. with the Department of Defense, someplace she feels very comfortable. I'm really sorry we're losing Dr. Beckham. She was brought on board with the idea, with her background in research and her background at Plum Island, which the National Bio-Agri-Defense Facility is kind of replacing in a way, that she would be helpful in trying to integrate what NBAF brings to this area to campus. How can we leverage what they have over there and make sure we get some of the benefit. So we're sorry to see her go. We're going to have a new dean out at Polytechnic, new provost search, which is about ready to get underway, and we just concluded a CIO search, and that I'm hoping we can announce next Tuesday or Wednesday. We're in the final throes of working through the contract with that particular individual. There's a lot of activity, and it takes an enormous amount of energy and a lot of opportunity costs, because we tend to build very large search committees, and that's people that could be doing other things that are on a search committee. So we do appreciate those that volunteer, but it still takes a lot of effort. There's been a lot of consternation, of course, with the student organization changes. Heather Reed is the expert on this. I will just say what motivated this was the liability risk we take when we don't have clear lines of what the university sponsors and what we don't sponsor. So we're trying to claim in courts we don't sponsor fraternities, yet we hold the bank account for that, and we host all the meetings. We're so intimately involved. So it looks like we're against sororities and fraternities. That's not the case. We love them. We want them to prosper, but the relationship has to be a little clearer. And so while we were at it, we made that relationship very clear. But the bottom line is that all registered student organizations are going to have access to all the programming and services that in the Center for Student Involvement, which is a new name that we've named it. And there's a lot on the web. You can go look at all the FAQs and answer all your questions, or you can bug me for a little bit and then Heather for a lot longer, because she's been right in the middle. This has not been pleasant, but it's something that's been kind of around for a long time, and I think with the proclivity of people suing universities and so forth, that we have to protect ourselves, because that's expensive. And what's that do? That raises the cost of tuition, the cost of attending Kansas State University. It seems like a big change now. In 4 or 5 years or 2 years, nobody's even going to remember, because we're going to provide the same service, the same TLC that we would have provided under the old organization. It's just going to be clearer how we do this. And it'll cause some people, Interfraternity Council is going to have to, they've got to figure out how to do a couple of things that were done for them. But they aren't major, though. I think they'll be able to do that. I'll answer any Title IX questions if you want to ask. I'm not going to cover where we are there. And I think, I don't want to go up past my time too far. I think I'll stop there and we'll see what's on your mind and answer any questions I can answer.
Are there any questions for President Meyer? President Ayers?
Hey, wait, this is not fair. It is fair.
Can you talk a little bit about our Innovation and Inspiration campaign, where we are with that, and some recent updates on that?
Sure. So last year, our goal was to raise $150 million by June 30th. We raised 152.5. It wasn't that long ago. When I first went on the foundation board in 2006, we were raising less than $80 million a year. Okay, that's not that long ago. By 2008 or 9, it was around 9 or 10 when we finally raised like 90 million, then 100 million. So just 6 years ago, we were around 100 million. Now we're at 52.5, and next year's goal is 155 million. So the one thing I would say, anybody here in the student foundation? Okay, so the leadership team in our Kansas State University Foundation, which, as you know, is a private 501c3. They're a private corporation. They're not in the chain of command, although they're included like they're part of the cabinet. So Greg Willems or somebody is always there as we make major decisions. They're really a much different organization now than when I left. Greg's done a nice job over there, and he's their president. And we ended the campaign last March. We passed the $1 billion mark, and that was our campaign goal, and it was a year early. And so the decision was made, why don't we, if you read Peanuts, it's like Lucy and the football. We had the football down, and he almost kicks it, right? And then we pull it away. So they reached the goal, and we pull it away and say, no, here's the goal now. And we knew that would be maybe, to some, they would think they've been the bait and switch idea. So we went out to all the major donors, said, what do you think? Should we extend the campaign and go for $1.4 billion? And they all supported that. Our major donors all said, sure, and I'll do more. So with that momentum, we're going to go to 2020 and we're going to raise $1.4 billion, which, by the way, the endowment is one of the measures where we measure where we stack up in top 50 public research universities. And we lag in that area. We probably won't reach that. We might reach that goal by 2025, but other people aren't standing still. They're all moving too. So that's our new goal. Pretty ambitious. But if my swing through Western Kansas and Wichita was any indication, we got a lot of folks that are stepping up and willing to do more. And particularly when it comes to students, and particularly when it comes to faculty. A lot would want to have faculty and faculty chairs. Some programmatics. Probably not as many big. I don't think there'll be some. Well, I'll mention one thing that's going to be big, but the next big construction project I'll talk to you in just a minute about. So not so much. There won't be as much of that going on in the next few years. So we can focus on other things. Does that help? Yeah. Yes, sir. The biggest one we've already kind of talked about, and that's cost. So and enrollment. And so in terms of enrollment, I think if you speak to prospective students, as you speak to their parents, you know them all. They're all back home. They're all there, and they're saying, where should I go to school? Should I go to Pittsburgh State? That's a lot cheaper than K-State. And that's when you chime in with the value proposition. Says, well, it is. But what are you trying to get out of your college degree? And maybe that's the right solution for individuals, or maybe they have other aspirations. And I think that would be at least to have that discussion about value. The other thing I think you can help with is, as you see, we're about ready to come out with an efficiencies report, talking about some steps we're going to take as a university to be more efficient, and then save cost subsequently. So as you are out and about looking at things, if you have an idea on how we can cut cost in anything we do, you can feed that in to any senior administration official, and we'll take that. We think we have a pretty comprehensive report, and there were some things we looked at that we're not going to do, but there's a lot we are going to do. And you'll have that report, like all our stuff, will be on the web, and you can take a look at it. It's not quite ready for prime time. It's getting close. They wanted to publish today, but we said, nah, not quite ready. So they've got to put some words in there about the context of some of the things we'll be doing. And I guess the last one, and I think you're already focused on this, Jack and Olivia. I think it was part of your platform, but I think you always think about safety of everybody on campus, students in particular. So whatever we can do to enhance student safety, whatever there is, then we need to be thinking about it. And we need to have ideas and take action to make sure that when people come to campus, we're as safe as we can be. And that's what I like to tell parents, of course, that we'll take care of your son or daughter, and we mean it. But we've got to be vigilant. And so if you have ideas around that, I'll mention one other that it probably doesn't rise to those levels, but it's still irritating, and that's those that like to chant a particular thing when KU comes to town. Or I've heard we use it when other teams come to town. That's not who we are at Kansas State University. That does nothing but to drag us down. When they try to rebalance the conferences here, when all the media contracts run out in about 7 or 8 years, if we have a reputation for being a bunch of jerks here at Manhattan, we're in a small media market. That means nobody loves us. ESPN they don't love us because they don't make any money off our market, and we could be left in a much worse position. So to beat that, we got to have a great academic reputation. We do, and we've got to be known for who we are. Everybody in this room, I am sure, would not participate in that kind of chant. And it's alums too. It's not just students. I mean, it's across the board, as I understand it. From what I had to hear it on television when KU played. I wasn't able to be here, so I'm listening on, and I didn't actually hear it on the show, which is good, because I would have been a sleepless night. I'd have been really mad, because it's not who we are, and we don't want to be defined by those that think they can be crude and rude. So if you got ideas on how we can, I've got a couple, and I'm going to implement them during basketball season. It may be a real backfire, but I got some thoughts on how to do that. But all my family went to KU, so I don't have real great animosity towards KU. They're another great institution here in the state of Kansas. I want to compete with them fair and square, head on, and beat them at everything we do, and we have in many areas. But I'll tell you, the new chancellor is a breath of fresh air in the sense that he sees the world as there's plenty in this state for KU and K-State to take advantage of. He sees more value in partnerships than he does in saying, well, here's our slice of the pie and here's your slice of the pie. And I don't know if he can bring the rest of campus along in Lawrence, but it's a good starting point, and he wants to partner. And I've got some ideas, and he's got some ideas, and we're in dialogue how we can partner and make ourselves both better. And it's not a zero-sum game in his mind. I think he's absolutely right. Those are a few ideas. So the last one's probably not as important as safety and all the rest of those, but we don't want that to define us. We don't want the newspaper article to be about that. I'm getting tired of my KU friends sending emails after every game. Well, look at you guys. Can't you control? And the answer is no, I can't. But and I understand they probably do it to us too. I got all that. But I think we need to change that. I want to compete head to head as hard as we can and beat them. I mean, I'm all for that. But those are student athletes out there, and it just revved up their basketball team last time. That was a real backfire. They were beating us pretty well, and then they just went to town. And, I mean, that's what it does, right, when you're competing. So we turned a very unfriendly place into their advantage, sadly. Okay, I'm sorry, that's too much. What else? You can tell I'm a little bit passionate about that because I just don't think it's the right thing.
Senator Renz.
Okay, it's it was based on the risk of not being properly organized for our institution. So students, I don't know how students are going to lose in this. We should never have been, the university should never have been keeping the bank account for interfraternity council. I mean, why would we do that? It's a private organization. They're private corporations. Why? So it's developed over time. So I don't see a downside for students. I think when we get used to this, we'll be fine. I know there's going to be additional costs. You have to find some spaces, all that. But the TLC is still going to be there. All the support, the things that you really need will be there. So I think it was a combination of things. But as a university president, I'm not willing to take on that risk. That raises your tuition. I'm not. So I'd say from that standpoint, it benefits students. Yeah. That liability falls on the individual houses for sure. It always was there. It always was there. It was just hard in a lawsuit to prove that's where it is. When you look at our paperwork, you look, so they'll try to connect the two. Lawyers are clever, right? So they'll try to connect that two. So I know it's hard right now. I understand that. It's gut wrenching. I'm a Greek system. I love it. I've spent a lot of money at my house in the last 10 years trying to get it back on track. Having said that, I felt this is the right decision. So, yes, students were involved in the decision because if we got a couple lawsuits, if we lost a big settlement, we'd all feel it. We'd all feel that. And so we want to put the risk where the responsibility is, and not some more nebulous gray area that makes that unclear that can be exploited in the courts. And that's how we went at it. So I don't think you can't characterize it as that was good, bad for the students, or good for the students. We're talking about our university here. We're talking about trying to protect ourselves from lawsuits, some of which are frivolous, but nevertheless you got to, and we're not. You think we're alone in this? You don't think we benchmarked? We're not. We're ahead of some. We're behind others that have already taken these steps to make sure these lines of responsibility, authority, are clearer than they were in the past. So that's what we try to work. And it's not easy. I know. I know. But that's the answer that I'd give. What else? Happier topic.
All right.
And I thank Heather Reed for working through that because she's felt it up close and personal.
If there are no further questions, thanks for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you for your serious efforts, by the way, on behalf of Kansas State University. I really appreciate that, as Heather said in her poem. That was very nicely done. Thanks, Heather.
Next up is the League of Women Voters.
Good evening. Yes, turning this on. There. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Catherine Hedge. I'm the Vice President of the Manhattan-Riley County League of Women Voters, and I am here to thank you for being part of representative democracy. You know what it takes to move others forward, and to represent others, and to help those who do not have a voice have a voice. So thank you for being here. I have just a couple of things that I want to share with you. Shall I use something else? Or I can stand still. It's difficult, but I can. If you do not, we have a document that's under your files for this evening. But if you need a paper copy, my colleague here, Maureen Pruitt, will hand these out. I'm not reading this to you just to keep you from being fearful. All right, so just a couple of things. All right, so I will stand still. At least I'll try to. Okay, my mission tonight is twofold. One, I want to share with you the current state of voter registration in Kansas, but I also want to give you some advice if you or your friends or your living group or those that you represent decide to do a voter drive, because there's some specific things that we need to do. The first thing, though, that I do want to share with you is that the League of Women Voters, we are the daughters of the suffragettes. And when the women first received the vote, the next day we became the League of Women Voters. Oh, that works. Thank you. So the next day we became the League of Women Voters. We are not just women now. We are any individual, citizen or non-citizen over the age of 16 who would like to take part in learning about the structures in our country. And voting is still very much at our core, but we have many other issues that we advocate for and try to educate others for the good of all of us. Our mission statement is the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. And you can find out about the many things that we do on the lwv.org, which is our national website, and also on our local website. Those sites are all listed on the document that I've given you. Let's see. The first thing that I want to check is I just want to see how many of you, this is not any kind of shaming going on here. I just want to know by a sign of hands how many of you are already registered to vote. Okay, let me see. Fantastic. Okay. All right, so those of you who are not registered or for many reasons, I'm going to focus in on what you do if you wish to register voters and what is the big issue in Kansas. That'll be my focus. But if any of you should want to register, I do have some forms with me that you could catch me at the door. Or my colleague Maureen Pruitt, she's excellent in getting paperwork to everyone. Okay, the first thing that I want to tell you about is that in Kansas, we have a system. You know what? I need a copy of one of those forms myself. Thank you. All right, just a couple of talking points. When you talk to someone about whether or not they are registered to vote or care to register to vote, the biggest thing that you need to know is know who your audience is and what matters to that person. What matters, for example, in local elections that'll be coming up this year, those individuals who perhaps bike paths or rental inspections. I just listed several things that are happening at the local level. The anti-discrimination ordinance, those happened in Manhattan because of local government. For state and federal elections, do I need to talk to this group about that? That's why you're doing what you're doing, because you know you have the future in your hands when you take part in what actually makes the laws. There is definitely advocacy that we can do in many ways, in our social media, in our campaigns, in our marches, many things that can be done. But in the bottom, it's the legislative process that's going to make the laws and also make the funding. The age group deal is really big. I'm sure, or I hope that many of you have seen the evidence, but my age group in local elections, we vote at many times the age of those who are 18 to 24. Many times. And in the national election, twice as many people my age vote. So what are you going to get? Are you going to get a new senior citizen center, or are you going to get a child care center? What's going to happen in your community? Well, if that's what the voting pattern is going to be, you can predict what is going to happen. And so the biggest thing to do is to help people understand that voting, that when it comes time for them to vote, for when someone says to you, why should I even bother? It doesn't make any difference. Ask them to imagine a person who believes in absolutely opposite everything that they believe, everything that they stand for, that person stands for the exact opposite. And then ask them, if that person votes and you don't, what's going to happen? So if you're not doing anything else, at least you're canceling out the vote of someone whose opinions are much different. And of course, we also always stand by the right for those individuals to have their own opinion and also to find out the facts behind their opinions. But there are many states that are passing laws that are having the effect of suppressing the vote, especially of younger voters, and also of populations, different demographics. That's the effect. And I'm not speaking from a political point of view. We are nonpartisan. We never support or oppose a candidate, ever. But this is the effect that is actually happening. And so it is important that to get that vote out so that all members of our society are representative. Okay, so here's what happens in Kansas. If you want to vote in Kansas, you need to be registered. You know that. Please let your friends know they can only be registered in one place. So they can't say, well, if I get home, I'll register here in Manhattan, because then if I'm not able to get home, I can vote here. You just be registered in one place. But the big issue now is that in Kansas, there are two things that are happening. You can register with the Kansas form. That is what the state law is telling us to do, is to be registered with the state and provide proof of citizenship through documentation, such as submitting your birth certificate. That's the Kansas form. There have been many cases, though, in the courts that have said, no, the federal form is perfectly acceptable to use to vote. And so what we have now is two systems. You can register through the state website, and you can register through the state of Kansas, but then you must submit proof of citizenship. If you don't, you'll go on a suspense list, and after 90 days, everything gets dropped. So on the reverse of this sheet is what is happening now. You may register using the federal form. The federal form does not require proof of citizenship, such as documentation. However, you have to swear that you are a citizen under the threat of perjury. You cannot register or even try to register if you're not a citizen. That's the law. So you can fill out the form and when it is filled out and it is submitted, you are eligible to vote. You will be in a separate system, however, under those who have registered like through the DMV and the ones who have used this federal form. So you may not get a little card that tells you where to vote. So when it's time to vote, you need to go and look that up online. And I put some resources there of where you could do that. Maureen, did you want to add anything to that? Okay. And she is the person who kept going to the county clerk saying, we need a letter. We need a letter, so we know exactly what to do. And it does say that if you use the federal form, that you are fully registered to vote for all positions. So it's not that you can only vote for national and not vote for state. There are a couple of differences when you use the federal form. There's a couple of specifics that you need to sign in for Kansas, but all that information is online. When you and again, the links are here. When you look it up, you'll get a big PDF, which is like 27 pages. But when you go in, like page 4. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No problem. Is there a motion to extend? Yep, Senator McIntyre. All opposed, say aye. Or all in favor, say aye. Whoa, that was bad. Rough year. All right, all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. With that, you got more time.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm actually going along better on time than it probably looks like I am. Okay. This federal form, again, is available in many places. You can print off the actual pages that will register, and as I said, I think I have 20 copies here. If you are welcome to take this with you. Bless you. You're welcome to pick one of these up. This is the form that you fill out and send it in to our county clerk, and you are definitely going to be registered to vote. If you were born in Kansas, they will go and double check to see, just to make sure that you're in the system, but you are registered to vote with this form. Okay, but a couple of things. If you do register people, sorry, forgot to say, remind people that if they move, if they move their permanent address, if they're not keeping their family's home address, they need to re-register. And also, if they change their name or sex, they need to get that changed on their registration. And that is by re-registering. You don't have to prove a citizenship, but you do need to re-register. Okay, a couple of things. So let's say you go out and you're going to register some people. Make sure that...
I was just going to say that you do have to tell the people, even if they have just moved within Manhattan from one apartment to another apartment, they still must re-register.
Thank you very much. It's important that you never badger somebody, make them feel bad because they're not registering to vote, and you absolutely never tell them ever what party they should register for. There is some gossip going around that there are living groups that are telling people that everybody in that living group needs to register a certain way. I would like to assume that that is just gossip and not true. But it's very important that if you're doing this, not to badger someone. And if you need more information, because there's a ton out there, there's many, many, many links down on the bottom of this page. And these links should be live on the document that's in your folders. Also, we have Dr. Shank Hamlin would love to have you attend some of our trainings. If you want to register voters, we're doing an official training. The information is on the back here. Rich Vargo, our county clerk, is going to be coming to talk to us in a couple of weeks about what are the voting machines like in Manhattan? How old are they? Is there a paper trail? And we're also having a candidate forum for our local elections. So that's it, and I'm ready for some questions. For what, a minute left?
Couple minutes. You get a couple more minutes for questions. Are there any questions?
Yes. It is, okay, that's an excellent question. She asked where ideally should college students register to vote. They should register to vote in the place that well, there's two things. Where it impacts their lives, where they plan to stay for several years, and where they have the most personal connection. If their personal connection is at home and they know the community and they really want to impact that community and they can drive home to vote, that's where they should register. However, you're in Manhattan now, the bike trails, the rental inspections, all of that stuff directly impacts you here. So you may decide to register here. If you register, but you've got to get that absentee ballot from home. Otherwise, you've just wasted your vote if you can't get home on that day. That's a good question. Thank you. Any
Further
other questions? Yes. If you're re-registering, that's a great question. If you're re-registering and you're already registered in Kansas, you can just go through the state website and just re-register on there. It's very simple. You don't have to. Yeah, it's the same form. Exactly. And the only big deal is now for the first-time registers, if they go through the state and if they go through the state website, then they're going to get on that list where they have to turn in the birth certificate, and they can be on the suspense list. But if they go through the federal form, they will not be on the suspense list. So, and they can vote with both forms as long as they follow through. Thank you for asking. Anything else? Yes.
What other documents can we use other than birth certificate?
Good question. You can use your passport, a tribal identification card. Do you remember? Let's see. I brought the SAFE Act here. So the SAFE Act, this is all on the website for the state. And there are many forms of documentation, and also on our website, on the local league website, it lists there specifically what kind of documentation do you need. Ooh, and one big piece of documentation, when you go to vote, don't forget your K-State ID, because you need to prove you need to prove who you are when you go to vote. So don't forget to bring that along with you. But there is a whole list of different things that you can use to prove your documentation. Okay. If there's no further questions, I want to thank you again. It's lovely to see your shining faces. Thank you.
Awesome. With that, we'll move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Yes, Senator Rosnapor.
I move to approve the minutes. Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any debate? Seeing none, if there is no objections, the minutes will be approved. Awesome. With that, we'll move into announcements for the week. Meetings that are canceled due to Labor Day include college allocations, governmental relations, privilege fee, student engagement, and university allocations. Will your committee meet?
Sit tight. Senate Ops, watch out for an email.
Awesome. With that, just a quick reminder of SGA's attendance policy. Scheduled class, study and review sessions, and exams are excused absences. Senators and Senate interns are allowed 1 excused absence per semester for academic purposes. All regular meetings of other student organizations and scheduled work are unexcused. Any other excuses will be considered on an individual basis. All absences must be submitted on the proxy form 24 hours before Senate, so that's Wednesday at 7 p.m. And a total of 3 unexcused absences from Senate will be grounds for expulsion. And also same for committees as well. That being said, 1 absence, according to this policy, is a full meeting, and there's 2 roll calls to each meeting. So you get a total of 6 roll calls that you can miss on the attendance policy. If you're going to be absent, please fill out the proxy form. Tonight, Mertens is filling in for Lonker. And then Senator of the Week this week goes to Senator Molly Klein, as she made her efforts to attend Senate last week. So let's give her a round of applause. Awesome. You can see the events calendar coming up for the next 2 weeks on the agenda, and then also a quote from Audrey Hepburn: "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible." With that, we will move into commendations. Is there a motion for Resolution 8? Yep. Senator McIntyre. It is moved and seconded to consider Resolution 8. Would the author please come forward? Good question.
Unfortunately, I did not memorize it when I wrote it. Resolution 171808, commendation to Alice Lamb and Fernanda de la Torre, by Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Jeffrey Bogner, Adriana Elliott, Colton Fuller, Megan Hyan, Ryan Kelly, Jordan Keel, Andrew McKittrick, Ryan Mersman, Brianna Mertens, Max Meyer, Grant Nichols, Andrew Puchin, Jonathan Puchin, and Ramin Rastanpour. Whereas 2 K-State, Kansas State University students recently took first place honors at Kansas City Startup Weekend 2017 for their team Zubot. Whereas Alice Lamb and Fernanda de la Torre, both studying computer science, led their team Zubot to win the competition. Whereas the event is open to those with entrepreneurial drive and is a 48-hour event for developers, designers, and entrepreneurially minded people to gather and create a startup. Whereas, working from a 2017 all-university open house project, the autonomous assistive quadcopter, Lamb and Delator competed with the winning idea for a series of programmable smart toys that children can modify physically and, by changing the software, learn about artificial intelligence. Whereas in an initial qualifying round, Delator and Lamb pitched their idea and received enough votes from participants to proceed. Whereas Team Zubat was awarded first place by the event judges and also won the People's Choice Award for their development of a business case and marketing plan, as well as demonstration of a prototype, all focusing on the artificial intelligence and object recognition capabilities of the toys. And whereas the original open house team was advised by William Su, professor of computer science. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates Alice Lamb and Fernanda Delator for their hard work and effort that resulted in first place honors at this competition. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to all team members and their families. Professor of Computer Science, William Su, Head of the Department of Computer Science, Scott DeLoach, Dean of the College of Engineering, Darren Dawson, and University President, Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections for the resolution? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Yeah, I would recommend approving it.
Awesome.
They represented our university very well and won first place in a regional/national event.
Awesome. Is there any further debate? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve this unanimously? Yep, Senator Valdez. It is moved. Is there a second? It is moved and seconded to approve this resolution unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the resolution is approved unanimously. Is there a motion for Resolution 9? Senator Valdez. It's moved and seconded for Resolution 9.
All right, me again. Resolution 171809, commendation to Chad Olney by Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Jeffrey Bogner, Adriana Elliott, Colton Fuller, Megan Hyan, Ryan Kelly, Jordan Keel, Andrew McKittrick, Ryan Mersman, Brianna Mertens, Max Meyer, Grant Nichols, Angie Puchin, Jonathan Puchin, and Ramin Rostenpour. Whereas a Kansas State University student has been awarded a science, mathematics, and research for transformation or SMART scholarship for service for the 2017-18 academic year, whereas Chad Olney, senior in civil engineering, won the scholarship established by the U.S. Department of Defense. Whereas the program supports undergraduate and graduate students pursuing degrees in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines, and whereas awardees receive full tuition payment for the year of the award, a $25,000 per year stipend, and guaranteed employment at a sponsoring Department of Defense facility upon graduation. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates Chad Olney for being awarded a SMART scholarship for service by the U.S. Department of Defense. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Chad Olney and his family, interim head of the Department of Civil Engineering, Mustaq Hossain, Dean of the College of Engineering, Darren Dawson, and Kansas State University President, Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Yeah, so, I mean, he kind of explains it there. He won a huge scholarship, and I don't know if you saw that stipend, but that's pretty impressive from the Department of Defense, and he has a guaranteed job after graduation, and he represented us very well, so.
Is there any further debate? Seeing none, is there a motion? Senator McIntyre? It is moved and seconded to approve this resolution unanimously. If there are no objections, this resolution will be approved unanimously. Is there a motion for Resolution 10? Yep. Senator Nordstrom, or Chair Nordstrom. Is there a second?
Resolution 171810, commendation to Jack Ayers by Olivia Ballman, Jeffrey Bogner, Adriana Elliott, Colton Fuller, Megan Hyan, Ryan Kelly, Jordan Keel, Andrew McKittrick, Ryan Mersman, Brianna Mertens, Max Meyer, Grant Nichols, Angie Puchin, Jonathan Puchin, and Ramin Rostenpour. Whereas a Kansas State University student was selected for the 2017 National Student Congress of the Henry Clay Center for Statesmanship. Whereas Jack Ayers, senior in chemical engineering and student body president, was selected to the prestigious program and had the opportunity to meet with lawmakers, professors, journalists, and civil leaders to discuss civil engagement, democracy, and conflict resolution. And whereas the National Center educates selected students in the skills of negotiation, dialogue, and compromise. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, commends and congratulates Jack Ayers for selection and participation in the Henry Clay Center for Statesmanship. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Jack Ayers and his family, head of the Department of Chemical Engineering, James H. Edgar, Dean of the College of Engineering, Darren Dawson, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
I don't know. Jack's a pretty cool guy.
Any further debate? Seeing none, is there a motion? Yep, Chair Orth. Is moved and seconded to approve the resolution unanimously. If there are no objections, the resolution will be approved unanimously. And since Jack is in the room, we are allowed to stand and clap for him. So. Is there a motion for Resolution 12? Yep. Senator Papoon. 11, my bad. Is there a second? It's moved and seconded, Resolution 11.
Resolution 17-1811, Commendation to Michael Brown by Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Jeffrey Bogner, Adriana Elliott, Colton Fuller, Megan Hyan, Ryan Kelly, Jordan Keel, Andrew McKittrick, Ryan Mersman, Brianna Mertens, Max Meyer, Grant Nichols, Angie Puchin, Jonathan Puchin, and Ramin Rostenpour and Tori Thomas. Whereas a Kansas State University student has been named a 2017 Praxair Engineers of Tomorrow Scholarship winner from the Executive Leadership Council, whereas Michael Brown, sophomore in mechanical engineering, won the scholarship awarded to high-achieving undergraduate minority students currently attending a four-year college or university pursuing a mechanical or chemical engineering degree. Whereas 3 scholarship awardees receive a one-time scholarship of $12,000 each, whereas the scholarship sponsor, the Executive Leadership Council, is a membership organization committed to increasing the number of global Black executives in C-suites, on corporate boards, and in global enterprises. And whereas Brown will attend the Engineering Leadership Council's Honors Symposium as part of the award, which is designed to introduce scholarship recipients to a wide range of business-related careers and industries in New York City and Washington, D.C., where they visit major global companies and engage in one-on-one meetings with senior-level executives. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates Michael Brown for being awarded the prestigious 2017 Praxair Engineers of Tomorrow Scholarship and participation in the Executive Leadership Council's Honors Symposium. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Michael Brown and his family, head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, William L. Dunn, Dean of the College of Engineering, Darren Dawson, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Once again, a student represented our university very well on the national level and was rewarded for it.
Any further debate? Seeing none, is there a motion? Senator Penny. It's moved and seconded to approve the resolution unanimously. If there are no objections, the resolution will be approved unanimously. With that, is there a motion for Resolution 12? Yep, Senator McIntyre. It's moved and seconded, Resolution 12.
Resolution 17-1812, Commendation to Nathan McLean by Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Jeffrey Bogner, Adriana Elliott, Colton Fuller, Megan Hyan, Ryan Kelly, Jordan Keel, Andrew McKittrick, Ryan Mersman, Brianna Mertens, Max Meyer, Grant Nichols, Angie Puchin, Jonathan Puchin, and Ramin Rostenpour. Whereas Cargill Inc. has recognized a Kansas State University student for his potential as a leader and researcher in the spheres of food, farming, and financial risk management. Whereas Nathan McLean, sophomore in computer science and physics, is one of 10 U.S. students selected as a 2017 Cargill Global Scholar. Whereas the Scholar Program also includes more than 60 scholars from Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, and Russia. The program is administered by the Institute of International Education and provides top students with scholarship support and development opportunities, including one-on-one mentoring program, case study presentations, and seminars. And whereas Cargill scholars demonstrate excellent academic achievement, leadership potential, and research interests in science, technology, engineering, math, agriculture, international relations, or business. McLean is an undergraduate researcher working on writing code for robotic vehicles with Pavitra Prabhakar, Associate Professor of Computer Science at Kansas State University. Be it resolved that, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates Nathan McLean for being selected as a 2017 Cargill Global Scholar. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Nathan McLean and his family, Associate Professor of Computer Science Pavitra Prabhakar, Head of the Department of Computer Science Scott DeLoach, Dean of the College of Engineering Darren Dawson, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Retweet what I last said. K-State student representing us very well, this time on the international level.
Any further debate? Seeing none, is there a motion? Senator Martin. It's moved and seconded to approve Resolution 12 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 12 is approved unanimously. Is there a motion for Resolution 13? Chair Orth. Moved and seconded.
Resolution 171813, commendation to the Kansas State University Fountain Wars team by Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Jeffrey Bogner, Adriana Elliott, Colton Fuller, Megan Hyan, Ryan Kelly, Jordan Keel, Andrew McKittrick, Ryan Mersman, Brianna Mertens, Max Meyer, Grant Nichols, Angie Puchin, Jonathan Puchin, and Ramin Rostenpour. Whereas the Kansas State University Fountain Wars team recently placed third in the Fountain Wars competition, a segment of the G.B. Gunlingson Student Environmental Design Competition. Whereas the K-State team has a long history of success, including top 3 finishes for 6 of the past 7 years. Whereas the outdoor event is a hands-on, real-time design contest in which students design and model their entry before the American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineering's annual international meeting. Whereas awards are based on combined scores of written report, video abstract, oral presentation, construction, technical tasks, and an aesthetic display. Whereas the Kansas State University team integrated a Lord of the Rings themed aesthetic display with its fountain design to accomplish this year's technical tasks, a beach ball launch and an egg toss. Whereas the team members consisted of Aaron Aiken, Devin Bonded, Dean Bennett, Alexander Kuhn, Cody Diaz, Teddy Gillespie, Charles Hamilton, Joe Hewitt, Caleb Jones, Jesse Laning, T. Ying Lin, Bailey Martin, Evan Morikal, Jessica Stanton, Angelica White, and John Wimp. And whereas the team is advised by Tricia Moore, Assistant Professor of Biological and Agricultural Engineering. Be it resolved that the Kansas State, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates the Kansas State University Fountain Wars team for its hard work and effort that resulted in third-place honors at these competitions. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to all team members and their families. Assistant Professor, Biological and Agricultural Engineering, Tricia Moore, Head of the Department of Biological and Agricultural Engineering, Joseph Harner, Dean of the College of Engineering, Darren Dawson, and University President, Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
They represented us very well at a national level and took home third place, top 3 finish once again, so we should commend them for it.
Any further debate? Seeing none, is there a motion? Senator Klein. It's moved and seconded to pass the resolution unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the resolution passes unanimously. Is there a motion for Resolution 14? Senator Rostenpour.
I move to consider Resolution 171814.
It's moved and seconded, Resolution 14.
All right, last one. Resolution 171814, commendation to the Kansas State University Quarter-Scale Tractor Team by Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Niels Bergston, Jeffrey Bogner, Adriana Elliott, Carlos Flores, Colton Fuller, Aaron Hendrickson, Megan Hyan, Ryan Kelly, Jordan Keel, Andrew McKittrick, Ryan Mersman, Brianna Mertens, Max Meyer, Grant Nichols, Sarah Needery, Jansen Penny, Angie Puchin, Jonathan Puchin, Lacey Pitts, Ramin Rostenpour, and Emily Zwick. Whereas the Kansas State University Hellwig Farms Quarter-Scale Tractor Teams recently came home with 2 top 5 finishes in the 20th Annual American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers International Quarter-Scale Tractor Student Design Competition. Whereas the KSU team has a long history of success, with this being the 19th time in the last 20 years that one of the university's teams has won or placed in the top 3 at the event. Whereas a panel of industry experts judges each design for innovation, manufacturability, serviceability, maneuverability, safety, sound level, and ergonomics. Teams submit a written design report in advance of the competition and must sell their design in a formal presentation to the panel on site. Machines are tested in performance events, tractor pulls, as well as the maneuverability and durability courses. Whereas the A team comprises of juniors and seniors won both safety and first time through awards. They placed 3rd in written report, 1st in oral presentation, and 5th overall. Whereas the X team comprised of freshmen and sophomores took 1st in the polling event and 2nd overall. Whereas the team members consisted of Gabriel Bergman, Skylar Burns, Curtis Doramaji, William Friesen, Connor Hamilton, Matthew Loomis, Jesse Meyer, Nicholas Meyer, Braden Michler, William Moreland, Alexander Nitko, Jonathan Pasowicz, David Poland, Evan Ritter, Garrett Schneider, Brett Schwartz, Jay Shirley, Wade Stroda, Lucas Weller, and Megan Workman. Whereas the team was advised by Edwin Brokish, instructor, Luann Klassen, administration specialist, Dan Flippo, assistant professor, John Kramer, adjunct professor, Pat Murphy, adjunct professor, and John Zeller, research technician, all from Biological and Agricultural Engineering Department, and Jim Schmidt, Biological and Agricultural Engineering alumnus and Department Advisory Board member. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates the Kansas State University Helwig Farms quarter-scale tractor teams for their hard work and effort that resulted in 2 top 5 finishes at these competitions. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to all team members and their families. Biological and Agricultural Engineering Advisory Board member Jim Schmidt, Biological and Agricultural Engineering instructor Edwin Brokish, administrative specialist Luann Klassen, assistant professor Dan Flippo, adjunct professor John Kramer, adjunct professor Pat Murphy, research technician John Zeller, head of the Department of Biological and Agricultural Engineering Joseph Harner, Dean of the College of Engineering Darren Dawson, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections? Yep.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Any further corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Both teams took home a top 5 finish, with the freshmen taking home 2nd, freshmen and sophomores taking home 2nd, and the juniors and seniors taking home 5th overall, as well as a collection of other awards, and they represented us very well. I would highly recommend we commend them.
Any further debate? Seeing none, is there a motion? Yep. Senator Fuller, there we go. Awesome. I had the first name, but I didn't have the last name. It's moved and seconded to approve the resolution unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the resolution is approved unanimously. With that, Senator Bogner, great job. All right, with that, we'll move into committee reports. The committee reports were shared in the agenda. We had 4 standing committees that did not meet this week. Are there any questions for any of the committee chairs based on their reports? Seeing none, the next item of business is directors' reports. Are there any directors that would like to make a report? Advisor Harlan.
I told Heather it wasn't very fair that she gets to read a poem and I get to talk to you about the Center for Student Involvement. So thanks for that. I want to give you, I was very happy that President Myers took the opportunity to broach the subject during his comments. And I wanted to provide a little bit more of a logistical view of how we've been implementing some of these changes. I will limit myself to the 5 minutes, and then I will field any questions that really apply to the whole big picture. But I ask if you have individual questions about a category of student groups or your specific student group, just come find me afterwards, and we won't take everybody's time to look at each individual situation because it gets very complicated. And and very difficult to do in a large setting. So I think, depending on where you have heard about the story, this summer we've been trying to implement the changes that we've been asked to make with merging the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life and the Office of Student Activities into the Center for Student Involvement, merging those staffs, and then dealing with all 500 of our student organizations and how we can define them in the appropriate ways to provide them all support, but define what their role with the university is. So as we found, especially going through this process of our 500 student organizations, there's a very broad spectrum in how they've been dealt with, either being 100% independent or very entwined with the university. And that goes across the board, all categories. And it's gotten very blurry. And so what the effort we're trying to do is to insert a separation between a university entity and an independent entity, and then guide them to fully implement that stance, if that makes sense. So what we've done is we've created 2 types of organizations and 10 categories of organizations. The 2 types are the departmental student organization and the independent student organization. You can probably guess which way on the spectrum both of those go based on the names. And then the 10 categories are the academic groups, the academic competition teams, the community service groups, the fraternities and sororities, general university, multicultural, honoraries, religious, special interest, and sport clubs. I think that's all 10. I've said that a few times this summer, yeah. And so the way the staff is dealing with it, the staff has 4 liaisons currently, and we're internally working with Brandon Clark as the 5th liaison for the center. As the Office of Diversity finishes the changes that they're making, we'll then address what that looks like for our office after that. But we've divided up the categories amongst those 5 staff, and we're all playing a role in working with specific categories. So the example for me would be academic competition teams, sports clubs, and general university groups. And so we've tried to both divide the load as well as playing into some of our specialties of experience with working with groups. And academic competition teams and sports clubs have a lot of SGA funding issues. So in working with SGA, that was one that I got to pick up. But we're trying to divide it that way. And then each liaison in the office works with both DSOs and ISOs. So we should all have a very good understanding of what it means to be those 2 different types of groups. So the policy went into effect on August the 14th. And since then, we've been meeting with tons of groups, tons of department heads, tons of students and faculty and staff, trying to explain the situation that we're trying to implement to the best of our abilities, and to listen to their concerns and their questions, because obviously they're coming up with questions that, as hard as we tried to think of everything, it's just not possible. So there have been some really interesting things when it comes to funding, accounting, liability, just a lot of different things that we're still getting answers to. As you can imagine, the reaction has been mixed. Hopefully most people are at least understanding that these changes are necessary to help us define the role that the university has with these student organizations. And while President Myers talked a lot about fraternities and sororities, this does go far beyond that. It's a conversation that we've had for 5 years with various entities on campus about how we define student organizations, and who should have access to a foundation account, and who should be able to use motor pool as a student organization, and who should have their finances in a departmental account. And what we found is groups were doing all of those things in a pretty random nature. And so this is the effort to separate those and say who can use these things and who can't use these things. And ideally, it's going to be better for everyone involved, because everyone should know what their liability is. And everyone should understand what their role is supposed to be as a student, as a faculty and staff, as an administrator working with those student organizations. The process right now for all student groups is the registration form is open, Currently, we have a goal of everyone being registered by October 2nd. Now, we know that some may not be able to achieve that. Our plan is to transition from the old list to the new list on October 2nd. And we'll evaluate when we get there and see what percentage we're dealing with student groups. In the registration process, you go into the registration form, you would begin to fill it out. You're asked, are you registering as a DSO or an ISO? With as much explanation as we can provide without just boring people in that form to death. We also stress, and if you're working with a student organization, you need to have those conversations with your department before you begin the form. Don't just jump in and put down your department head, because they're not going to be happy if an assumption is made that they're not prepared for it. So we're really working to educate people. Have the conversations with your department heads. If you're the Ag Econ Club, which one of my clubs when I was a student, so I pick on them. It's not anything about them. Have that conversation with the department head before you sign up as a DSO, so that they know why they're receiving that form and why they're being asked to sponsor the student organization. One of the roles that our office staff is providing is that as those conversations need to happen, if the department heads or the student groups are not prepared to really address that question, then we're offering to meet with them and not really mediate it, but provide answers to questions as they're trying to determine where they fit, because it will be much more difficult if decisions are made on less than accurate information, and then they just have to correct that. How am I doing on time?
A little over.
Okay, I'm done then. Are there any general questions about the whole shebang? We hadn't really thought about the council specifically. We're making our rounds to a lot of deans are inviting us to speak to like the department heads, but we hadn't really talked about the council. We probably will now that you've brought it up. Thanks. But yeah, that would be another way to reach a lot of groups in one shot. And what we found is that the policy is what it is. The frequently asked questions is what it is. Face-to-face explanations is usually the best way to help people understand. And it's the best way for us to understand the impact and what things we might possibly be able to address as those questions come up. So, yeah, we'll try to do that.
Senator Nordstrom.
Excellent question. So it'll be very different for the two types of organizations. A DSO will be required to have an advisor. It doesn't have to be the department head, someone in that department who's part of their job responsibilities. I'm not going so far as to say it's actually in their job description, but that would be ideal. And it's their job to work with that group. And so they are the advisor, and they are acting as a part of their employment to deal with that group. And it can be multiple people, but there has to be one. An ISO is no longer required to have an advisor, which we hope they will continue to have advisors. We see a lot of value in them being advised by individuals. Those advisors, however, can be faculty staff, they can be community people, or they don't have to have an advisor. But the important distinction is if you're an ISO and you have someone from faculty or staff at the university who's advising them, it is being done outside of their employment. It is voluntary and on their own time. And usually we have to say at their own risk for whatever that means. So two very big differences.
Senator Hine.
So yeah, what we can provide as liaisons to each category, they wouldn't like this term, but it's advising light. We can talk about best practices. We can talk about what other groups do. We just can't give advice about the day-to-day operations of an ISO. So we could talk about, here's how you can transition new officers into their roles, but we can't meet with your group and say, okay, so if you guys were elected last week, you should meet next week and do it like this. So we're hoping to at least help build a framework for those ISOs that may not have day-to-day advising and give them some guidance to help them at least accomplish their goals that way.
Director Kuchera.
Center for Student Involvement will evaluate a student organization and whether or not they have complied with the 10 to 15 requirements of registration. It will not be a disciplinary process. It will be rather cut and dry. Have you done the things necessary for registration? If you have, awesome. And if you haven't, then we'll deal with that in the appropriate way, which is usually a suspension of registration as appropriate.
Senator McIntyre.
Really none. They'll be able to start either a DSO or an ISO. Honestly, I mean, if you look at it, it's easier now. The forum is, if you just want to start an ISO and get on campus and having some meetings and associating in that way, you're talking about 5 minutes now because you don't need an advisor. The forum is shorter. If you have a constitution and 5 members, pretty simple. The other thing that may go along with that is you can also, as necessary, not on a monthly basis, transition between an ISO and a DSO. Situations change. Department heads leave, new people are hired. They have, they experience some problems where they don't want to continue to interact in the same way. So long as it's not seen as an intent to get around things, changing from a DSO to ISO and back is perfectly fine.
Time.
Time has been called. Is there a motion to extend? Seeing none, you're done, Bill. Awesome. Are there any further director's reports? SGA Treasurer Pushin.
Okay, so this is the SGA budget. So last year, a little bit of background on this is last year, for clarity's sake, we removed the SGA portion of the privilege fee out from the OSAS, now CSI privilege fee to be exact. So this is our portion of the SGA privilege fee that we get it. And here are the numbers of what we're using the funds for. 45,000 going for scholarships as compared to 46. That change is because JCOC recommended that we cut the funds for a few chair and increase in a few other places. Compensation was just a little change there recommended by JCOC as well. The big change right now that we're probably looking at is the legislative, executive, and judicial branch all went up by quite a bit. And so that money is intended to be used for programming purposes for each specific branch. I know Jack has big plans for the funds by their branches for their initiatives, and Chalma has plans as well. The judicial hasn't used all their funds in the past, but they're going to look to new ways that they can utilize these funds to get the word out for their branch. Travel stayed the same. Oh, intern program. Intern program was newly created. In the past, it had been under the legislative branch, and they really hadn't had the opportunity to do a whole lot with the funds that were not available to them at that point. So they've been given $250 to use as they see fit to recruit new interns and retain them. Travel, $7,500. That provides travel for Big 12 on the Hill and the SGA conference. Big 12 SGA conference. Promotions is $500, so that'll be general SGA things. I think a couple of years ago, a good example would be we had like a couple of forums that you'd use that promotions budget. Elections, $5,500. So that money is specifically used for our voting system online. That's provided to us by K-State IT. And so they charge us $5,500 a year, and so we have to keep budgeting for that. The banquet is going to be 1,800, so that's the end of the year banquet we have. This should be on April 5th. Is that right, John? Yes. All right, April 5th. So that's the last sentence, right before the last sentence we have the budget, and I will post this on to WorkSync. Reserves. So reserves is basically, so all this money goes into one account, and then we basically allocate from that. So the $1,000 there can kind of be seen as our fallback, our extra funds that we have available if something goes wrong. Do we have any questions?
Any questions for the treasurer? Seeing none. Are there any further director's reports? Yep. Speaker Pro Tem Mignani.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you all, and I hope you all had a fantastic summer. I'll just make my announcements real quick. Catherine, who came and spoke from the League of Women's Registers Vote. Is it? Okay. She left me these documents of voter registration, so you guys are Americans, you know what to do with this. You guys will know what to do with this. So just some quick announcements. First of all, name tags. It's very important that you guys get me your monies so that I can get the name tags ordered. I have to get everybody's monies together so that we can send it as one bill. We can't do bits by bits. We have to do it as one so that we can get billed. So if you got your monies tonight, feel free to drop by. There's only about 23 senators who have given me their monies. So if I'll push the deadline to next week, Thursday, before Senate time. If you could give me your monies, that'll be excellent. And you can drop them off in under the office, under the Speaker Pro Tempore and the Speaker's office, or you can give to Advisor Harlan or Amy. The second one is college caucuses. So we won't have caucuses tonight, but there are a few things that I've been making changes over the caucus. So I invite all the caucus leaders. We had a fantastic meeting to just share a brief about some information because next week I'll be kind of like going overall some of the things I'm hoping to change within the college caucuses, and hopefully you guys will like it, and hopefully we have a very successful year. So those are my two announcements, and then you guys will have a lovely, beautiful presentation of some of the things I'm doing with other things I'm going to be doing this year, Speaker Pro Tem. So those are the few things I have to announce. But yeah.
Are there any questions for the Speaker Pro Tem? Yep. Senator Kidd.
Yeah, for the name tags, I can't recall if I signed up for was I have to get one. Is there like a list that we can look at, or?
Yeah, so I'll do the updates of who has paid, and then I'll send it out tonight on the Excel sheet, or I'll just give it to Chair Musman, and he can send it part of the notes. I mean, yeah, the minutes. And also, if you know you don't have to be, you don't need a name tag because maybe you've held the same position and you don't need another name tag, email me so that I can get that changed as well.
Awesome. Any further questions? Seeing none, are there any further director's reports? Director Edwards.
All right, sports. So we unveiled this week an athletics drop-off lane. So you can kind of see where it is. This was designed by Meredith Clark, so props to her. I attempted to draw one in Word, and it was bad. This is a lot better. So it's right between Pittman and Call Hall. It is just a drop-off lane. It's not where you park and wait for someone. It's not where you park and walk to the game, just to be dropped off. And you can see the stadium up there. It is about less than half a mile away from the student tailgating lot, which is right here. And a closer look at it, you can see right there, you you would pull in. That's the three-way stop kind of north of the residence halls. What's important to know is after a game, if you're getting picked up, why this is important is because K-State Police corners off a lot of streets and makes them only one way or kind of stops traffic. This is not one of them. The furthest east they go is the intersection right there at Jardine and Denison. So this will not be impacted by K-State Police. And then the final lovely image that Meredith put together was this. So you can see exactly where to enter, where to exit, and where to go. Does that all make sense? Any questions about that? It's not going to cost you any money. So that's good. We had some alumni who are kind of confused, so I'm going to make sure you all understand what's going on with this.
Questions for Director Edwards?
Okay, part 2 of my report. So if you saw, Bill Snyder announced that on the game on Saturday, they will have the equipment truck to load up with supplies for Hurricane Harvey, the victims down there in Houston. They have 2 locations for that. One of them is the rowing center, which is right north of the student lots. That's where we're going to go. The other one's the practice facility, which is kind of in this direction over here. They recommended cleaning supplies, backpacks, and school supplies. I know a lot of you bring backpacks to tailgate, so just kind of give your backpack there. Empty it first, but sorry. So the rowing, the rowing center up here, we're going to go at 3. So we're going to go at 3 o'clock, get a group picture. The gates will open to the football stadium 2 hours before kickoff, so that's at 4 o'clock. So you can go tailgate, get your stuff, water, school supplies, toiletries, all that, and give to them. I know they said socks were a big thing. A lot of people were waiting in water, and their socks got ruined, so you can. Okay, did I? So, any questions?
Director Kuchera.
So K-State Athletics tweeted a big image of this. The big things were cleaning supplies that ranged from mops to Lysol to wipes to all that, and then school supplies, which was backpacks and stuff, because a lot of the kids who were down in Houston, they were scheduled to start school the day the hurricane hit, and it's been pushed back, so they kind of lost all the school supplies. And then some clothes, specifically socks and clothes that are waist down, because a lot of their clothes got ruined when they were walking through like 10 feet of water. So that will be loaded up to the equipment truck, and they will bus down to Houston, which is pretty cool. Most of the universities in Texas are not doing anything near that. They're just saying, oh, here's $5,000, or, you know, please donate. So we're actually doing something. So anything about that?
Any further questions?
Third and final part of this lovely speech is that we are starting a sportsmanship committee. As President Myers said, they're not too fond of the chant. So we have some student athletes and then some members of SGA and then some freshmen and sophomores who are kind of new to it to give their opinion on what happens and how we can get it to stop. So very low-key, nothing crazy. If you want to be a part of it, let me know. Maybe 15 to 20 people just to discuss what we can do to put that to a stop.
Any further questions? Any further report?
No.
All right. With that, our next director's report is Director Krotz.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is James Krotz. I'm the State Relations Director in the Cabinet. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about my plans for the semester. I will be doing a presentation series throughout the fall semester, giving you all kind of a background on what's been happening in the state of Kansas, because there's a lot that's been going on, and we all need to be informed about it as the leaders of our campus. And I would hope that you would then go inform other students about that. And then in the spring, I'll be giving updates on what's going on in the legislature, what kind of mischief they're getting into. So we've had a lot of a talk about some civic engagement tonight. So the League of Women Voters was here, and President Myers even touched how many of you are registered to vote. I'm going to take it a step further. How many of you can name both your state senator and your state representative? Considerably less than are registered to vote. So not even you, Senator Pitts. Okay. Called out. Okay, so that shows me that we've got some work to do. It is my goal for the end of the semester for everyone to know who that is. I'll be giving a presentation, and I also want you to add them in your phone because we'll be doing some work when the spring rolls around. And how we're going to do that is last year, the brainchild of Trent Kennedy and Jessica Van Rankin, Legislative Advocates Program. We never really we had one meeting, we never really kind of got off the ground. So I'm here to kind of jumpstart that program. The application went out. Everyone should have gotten an email about this from me. So the application, okay, it's bugs outside. I thought it was a microphone. So everyone should have gotten the application. It is due on September the 10th, and our first meeting will be Monday, September 11th in CIS at 7 p.m. So if you're chosen for this, you'll get an email from me, and I think Senator Pitts is going to help me go through the applications. Maybe she didn't know that. I would really encourage everyone who is interested at all in state government to apply. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Senator Rostapur.
Can you explain that last program just like really briefly? I assume
Yes. Right. Okay, so legislative advocates, it's going to be, basically we're going to be the lobbying arm. I hesitate to say lobbying, but right. We don't lobby. We're going to advocate for issues that are important to Kansas State. So like, I don't know, President Myers talked about value. Well, one part of value is lowering the cost, and a big reason of why Kansas State's tuition has been going up is because the state is divesting, taking less and less money, taking more and more money from us every year. So that's going to be a thing. We're still ironing out, looking at Jack here, we're still ironing out the details of what our policy is going to be for campus carry, what we do about that. We're going to do some sexual assault lobbying, lobbying to reform that process, and whatever else the legislative advocates who are chosen, whatever else they want to push for. So we're a nonpartisan organization, so you don't have to be Republican, Democrat, anything to join. In fact, I would prefer you not be.
Any further questions? Senator Grandy.
So my initial thought is to have us meet weekly, but that's just for the first couple of weeks to kind of get everything organized. And after that, we will meet less often, but then in the spring, I plan on having us meet weekly.
Any further questions? Yep. Senator Martin.
That's part of the application, so I'm like trying to figure out what works best for everyone.
Any further questions? Seeing none, are there any further director's reports? President Ayers.
All right, welcome everybody to the Wildcat Chambers. Pretty awesome stuff going on. Bill and I were looking at the data from YouTube, and some people are looking at it. It's good sound quality, good video quality, so hopefully we can encourage some folks to sign in. So first, I want to say thank you for the folks that wrote the commendation. I don't blush, and I was blushing, so that was an interesting thing. So I really appreciate that. Very humbling. So I wanted to talk about a couple quick things, to go over some stuff with the summer and where that kind of ended with going into this year, as well as a couple things I want you to have on your radar. First of all is a Lou Douglas lecture. So this is a lecture that's going to be had on campus September 19th from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And I think I'm wondering if it's come and go. There wasn't a whole lot of information on that side of it, but I'll get more details to you. But I think this will be something that's really interesting for a lot of us to attend. The speaker is named Dr. Keith Edwards, and his speech is "Ending Rape on College Campus: A Day of Conversations." He's a nationally well-known scholar and educator on sexual violence prevention, curricular approaches, education, and leadership. And I think this could really be something that a lot of you might find to be a very good conversation to be a part of. So getting into the summer, I want to give a quick update on the tuition and fees process. I know that's old news at this point since that happened early June, but I think that unless you were religiously reading the Manhattan Mercury, which in that case, rock on. But if you weren't, that's totally fine. I'll give you a little update now. So I think I presented in May when we had finished Tuition and Fee Strategies Committee, and the president was presenting our tuition and fee proposal to the Board of Regents for its approval. Now, there was one point of, I don't want to say contention, but a point of disagreement between what President Myers took forward and what the student government had supported, which was the engineering fee. Students said no increase in the engineering fee, and President Myers decided to take forward a $15 increase. However, ultimately, out of the conversation that happened over 2 days of Board of Regents meetings in June, President Myers decided to take that off of our proposal and ultimately went forward with the only fee increase in the College of Business, which was approved by the Tuition and Fee Strategies Committee. So that's a victory. I would never want to cheer for a tuition increase, especially since there was one this year. But at the end of the day, I feel like the process that should be something that students, especially those who served on TFSC, can pat yourselves on the back about. Excellent work on that. Our tuition proposal took forward as 3%. Board of Regents ultimately said it's got to be under that, so we had 2.8 is what the final result was. But what the conversations that came out of that meeting really indicated that going into next year, we need to be a lot more conservative with our asks for tuition and for fees. So I could see less than that, knock on wood, depending on what James can rally the troops in Topeka. Okay, so that was kind of the first thing this summer. The second thing that we had really gotten in discussions about was the restructuring of the Office of Diversity and the Chief Diversity Officer position. So I know a few of you were involved in the conversation that happened right before finals week last year where President Myers presented his proposals for the restructuring, and it was not received very well by many students there or many faculty members there. And so they ultimately went back into a comment period where individuals were allowed to send their thoughts to the president. And so I want to say first, thank you to everybody. There was a lot of students, particularly students from SGA, who sent their thoughts. A couple of them really, I think, got to the ear of the president. And ultimately, his final proposal, which is, like you said, is going into effect. Olivia will talk a little more about the student life side, but the compromise was to create a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer to be housed in the President's office. So this is similar to a Sue Peterson, Director of Government Relations, or Jackie Hartman, Chief of Staff. This person is in the President's office, has the ear of the President, and serves on President's cabinet, and has, I think, a lot of the weight and a lot of the just the access that a lot of students had fought for in their comments to the president. So I appreciate that as well. Wanted to give a quick thing following this summer. I got the opportunity to attend the International Town and Gown Association Conference, which is all about university and city relations in Oregon, which was an awesome experience, learning a lot about specifically how we can prevent substance abuse on our campuses. And ultimately, what kind of came out of that, I was actually there with Anna's dad, so that was kind of cool. Derek Jackson's a great guy, you should get to know him. And we are creating a task force on our campus to address this. That'll be starting soon. Folks, a lot of people from the community. Marcus, one of those people, I hope, right? Okay, good. Yeah, lots of really awesome people from the community and the university who will work on that. I'll keep you updated on that as we go. Finally, last thing, I promise I will not be a Reagan K's director's report giver.
Time.
Those of you who are old enough for that. All right, I take that back. Can I have like 2 more minutes to be quick?
Is there a motion? Senator Rostenpour.
I motion to extend the speaker's time by 2 minutes.
It's moved and seconded. Are there any objections? Seeing none,
all right.
You may go.
I spoke too soon about not talking for too long, so here's the wrap up. So this year, K-State is the chair for all Kansas Board of Regents committees. It means President Myers chairs the Committee of University Presidents, Provost Mason, and the Provost, and that means that I chair the Student Advisory Committee. So it's been a really awesome opportunity to get to work with the student body presidents across Kansas. They're actually going to be on campus Saturday for our retreat, where we'll be talking a lot about kind of what James was discussing, our legislative priorities, and a couple different things we want to work on this year. One of those really important things I want to call attention to tonight is we are working toward the creation of a task force for diversity and inclusion. And I want to give the biggest of shout outs to Ryan Kelly for all the work that he's been doing on that. Ryan has traveled to other universities throughout the last 2 weeks to talk in Kansas to talk to their leadership with multicultural groups and with their SGA leadership to figure out the best way that we can put together this task force. And it's been received very well, and a lot of that's thanks to Ryan Kelly's work. And I'm really excited to get that going this year and hopefully have some very good board advocacy about trying to make all of our campuses across Kansas more inclusive. So that is all I have for you, and I'll take any questions. All right, thanks everybody.
Any questions? Awesome. If not, thanks, Jack. And with that, we will return back to appointments. Oh, my bad. Vice President Ballman.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be back. I can't say it as eloquently as Heather did, but I'm really excited to be in this new space. Like Jack said, I'm going to give a little bit of an update on the changes within our diversity and inclusion positions. So I'd like to echo what he said and say thank you to everyone that submitted feedback for the president as well as the president's cabinet on moving forward, because it was received and the positions were changed a little bit. So Jack mentioned a little bit about the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. And then the other position that's being created is the Associate Vice President for Student Life for Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs. So it's a 9-letter acronym, in case you were wondering, kind of a mouthful, but it's really exciting. It'll be moved under Student Life, previously from under the Provost. And so I'm currently serving on that search committee, and they are trying to get a position filled by the beginning of next year. And then the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Mary Abunaban, Director for Multicultural Students on cabinet, will be serving on that committee as well. So 2 different SGA representation, but also a variety of student representation on both of those committees. So that's exciting. And then another really exciting thing that happened this summer, our Chief of Staff, Jordan Keel, was able to serve on the Food Pantry Director Search Committee, and that person has been selected. We'll be having a meeting actually tomorrow with the Food Pantry leadership to see what type of direction SGA can have in collaboration with that. So that person is Erin Bishop, so we're really excited to meet her and work with her this coming year for this awesome thing coming to campus. So those are my 2 things. And then lastly, if you read the K-State Today this morning, President Myers will be making a State of the University address on Friday, September 29th at 3:30 p.m. in Forum Hall. So make sure to have that on your calendars. It would be great to have SGA leadership there, as he's just taking kind of questions in open forum for all of campus. So, yeah.
Any questions for the Vice President? Seeing none, are there any further director's reports? Awesome. With that, we will circle back to approval of appointments, because there are a couple of directors that need to be installed.
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Student Support Director and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of Kansas State University Student Government Association.
Thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead and introduce yourself all the way.
So my name is Stephen Kutra. I am a master's student in accounting here at K-State. I'm from Kansas City, Kansas, and I just finished up my 2 bachelors in music and accounting in May. So I'm the student support director for this year, so I'll be working particularly on trying to get a needs-based scholarship initiative started up through the foundation, and also with the food pantry launch that will be happening sometime this fall. I'll have more information on that later. And my favorite smell would probably be cinnamon sugar.
And with that, we'll make a big jump all the way down to second open period. Are there any second open period speakers? Senator McIntyre.
Just so everyone's aware for the game this coming Saturday and then games for the future, we've been talking a lot about cheer, and they're going to be really strict about clear back policy for 1. And 2, there are going to be metal detectors at the game, so make sure you give yourself extra time going into the game. And like Nick said, if you're able to have backpack to donate, don't forget to talk to the
Any further speakers for second open period? All right, seeing none, there is no legislation to refer to places. Are there any constitutional or bylaw revisions? Seeing none, we'll move into second roll call.
Akers.
Say it again.
Akers. Albers. Archer. Bergston. Bogner. Bowler. Bookerud. Demoranville. Dahl. Elliott. Flores. Fuller. Garcia. Garrity. Grandy. Hendrickson. Hyen. Ho. Jackson. Jewell. Kallenberger. Kelly. Kidd. Klein. Lonker. Maples. Markle. Martin. McDermott. McIntyre. Mertens. Meyer. Nichols. Niedery. Nordstrom. Ogren. Orth. Oxler. Penny. Papoon. Pitts. Renz. Rostempur. Swanson. Tidrow. Thomas. Tuttle. Valdez. Williams. Works. Zwick. There are 48 senators present for second roll call.
Alrighty, is there a motion to adjourn? Chair Orth. It's moved and seconded. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned.